before we jump into what this panel is going to be, and before we really get going on exactly what this is, and giving you guys the information we want to get across to you guys, wanted to run through a couple of things here, a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, let's get something very clear, right? There is a chat box on the right, so I can see stuff that people are going to ask questions, things like that. We want this to be interactive, but please understand, this is not a NAR bash fest. I get it. People are upset. This is a touchy subject for a lot of agents, and I get that people feel some type of way. This is not what this is. It's not going to be a NAR bash fest. We want everybody to interact and ask questions in the chat. I'll be watching the chat actively and being able to pull questions up from it. Be respectful in the chat. Understand that everybody on this panel is volunteering our time. Nobody's getting paid for this, right? Everybody's here is to try and give something back to the community in obviously what is a very stressful situation right now, as to what is going on with our industry. Build a community. There is strength in numbers here, guys. We are all going to have to go through this change and navigate this together. So, by all means, reach out to each other in here, follow each other on social media, send this to a friend, send this to your real estate brokerage group chats. And the more people that we can educate about this whole process, the better off we will be as an industry. Our objectives for today, all right? The biggest thing here for me is we will operate in facts over feelings. Again, everybody can feel however they want about what happened, but it's done. Let's operate in what's actually going to happen. Facts over feelings. We want to deliver applicable information, applicable value, things that you guys can actively take back and give to your clients, and perspective that you can give to your buyers, to your sellers, and to the rest of your office, and as you're getting in these discussions with other agents. We are going to cover what this looks like from the consumer side, as well as the advisor and agent side. We're going to cover what this looks like for buyers, for sellers. And then obviously I fully understand, and this panel fully understands, the large percentage of the viewership here is going to be based around what's going on with agents. So we'll dive deep into how this affects agents. Surround yourself with a team that knows what's going on. It's a reason that I handpicked these panelists. I wanted to surround ourselves with people that understand what happened with this NAR settlement and how to navigate it, how this is going to affect our industry moving forward. The bigger thing here is our goal here is to make sure that you have an opportunity mindset. Right. I went through all of the roller coaster of emotions when this thing broke, just like everybody else. Right. I'm an agent. I'm a full-time advisor. I'm doing this. I'm in the industry. When this broke, I was emotional about it at first too. And I have since fully shifted into looking at this as a true opportunity to give back and to make sure that we are protecting ourselves, protecting our consumers, and truly giving full representation to our clientele. A huge piece of my own mindset in a lot of things in life in general is, and it goes no different for here, this has to be a so what, now what mindset. Whether you agree with the litigation, whether you agree with the way that NAR settled or not, it happened. There's nothing that we can do about it. All you can do is say, how do we adjust from here? Where do we move forward from here, right? So what? It happened. Now what do we do? And that's hopefully what we can give you guys a little bit of insight today is how do you move forward and how do you give back to your clientele? How do you protect your consumers? Again, we're going to operate in facts over feelings here. All right. And this is what we know. What we know is that there is a ton of misinformation out there, and your clients, our client base as agents, are getting their misinformation from the media. So it's important that we educate ourselves as to what this truly means. This is version 1. This is changing every day. I've had multiple meetings. We've all had multiple meetings about this. I've had multiple meetings in our brokerage. This panel has met a handful of times to discuss this, and every time it's changing daily. So this version now may not look the same when we get to actually in July when this thing rolls out. The roadmap to the closing table has certainly changed, right? This settlement is going to change the way that you do business. So get used to it, get comfortable in that uncomfortable zone, and be ready to pivot come July when these things really, truly go into effect. The MLS compensation, advertising on the MLS where you see the percentage, that's going away, as we all know, right? But the big thing to remember is that buyer-broker agreements are good for us, and the buyer compensation is going to still be available. It just can't be advertised on the MLS. All right. So those buyer broker agreements are going to be mandatory, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to get paid. And it doesn't mean that the seller isn't going to pay commissions still. The implementation of this is going to look different from state to state. So I know that there's people across the country that have logged on to this and that have signed up. So make sure that you understand what's going on in your local market and the way that this is going to affect your actual market inside of your state, inside of your MLS. Oh, I'm sorry. The last thing is, this gets talked about a lot. This all still needs to be approved. The framework for the settlement is there. Chances are, obviously, it will get approved, but I just understand that nothing has gone into effect just yet. This is business as usual, but you have to be educated because your clients deserve to be educated correctly on what this means for them when the implementation actually happens. Our panelists, first off, let me just say, again, they're volunteering. Thank you so much. When I called these people, when I called Lisa and Jeremy and Phil and Jim about my brainchild of putting this webinar together, they couldn't be happier to jump on board. So thank you to them for them jumping right in here. And which brings us to our next part. Is before we jump into everything and before things get hectic, I want to make sure that I can thank everybody who has contributed to this. Right, obviously the panelists. Huge piece of this for today. The president of NAR, if you guys have not NAR, I'm sorry, the president of Real Brokerage, if you guys have not watched his YouTube clip, his YouTube video breaking this down, I highly suggest that you jump on it and follow his stuff and take a look at what he's put out because it really simplifies the entire thing. Broke Agent Media, BAM Media, and the Knowledge Brokers podcast have done an outstanding job of covering this since it broke. And breaking this down for agents to understand. They did a whole live panel. The Knowledge Brokers podcast did a whole live panel last week. They've really educated the entire industry on what this means and how to pivot through this. Lastly, thank you to my broker, Lisa Troiano. Askley is the broker and owner of Engel & Volkers, Hoboken, Jersey City. When I went to her and I said, hey, listen, I'm going to host this panel, she jumped on board and said, you should do it. It's an excellent opportunity for you. But also the biggest thing here, guys, is when a lot of brokers that I talk to and agents that I talk to throughout the country say that their brokers have not addressed this. We've been having meetings about this once a month since, for the last year and a half, talking about exactly what this is going to look like. So thank you, Lisa, for leading the charge on that and making sure that our brokerage is prepared to pivot out of this thing and make sure that we come out on the other side of this as winners. With that, I will go ahead and introduce our panelists. Like I said, guys, this crew here has been outstanding and jumped on board immediately. First one up is Lisa. Let me just pull up this stuff here. I'm sorry, I should have had this. Lisa has been in the industry since 1998, and she has been a top 1% since 2015. She's with Cross Country Mortgage, and I personally use her as a lender for my clients, and she has been absolutely outstanding. She specializes in everything from VA loans to state grants, all the way to multi-million-dollar clients. But she's going to give us the insight that we need from a lending perspective and what this looks like for the lending community for our buyers moving forward. Jeremy Sullivan is my real estate attorney, my local real estate attorney. He's a solo real estate attorney, solo office. And his specialty really comes in making sure that he understands and takes care of his clients and advocates on their behalf. He is a retired police captain, so he has seen all sides of the law at this point. And he's going to talk about what this looks like and why these buyer broker agreements are going to benefit our clients, benefit us from a legal standpoint as well, and cover what that representation actually should look like and what it means. Jim Jordan is the president and owner of Quality Title and the Jordan Real Estate Group. He's been in the title industry been a title agent since 1992. He specializes in residential and commercial appraisals as well. So his specialty to this panel is going to be, we've all heard about the creative ways that we're going to be able to get our buyers to the closing table. He's going to talk about what that means for the appraisal industry and how those creative ways are going to make sure that working with the right title company will suit your clients and suit yourself as well. Make sure that you look good. Phil Greco, I call him our ace in the hole for this panel. Right, Phil is a director for NAR, so he has insight to this, and he's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to overall industry. He's been in the industry for 23 years. He served on local, state, and national committees, and he's been a member of a number of different panels. He has been the president of his own local association. So he has insight to this that, frankly, you're not going to really get. He's going to speak to everything that he can speak about when it comes to being able to talk about what went into the decision making for NAR. So me, guys, a little bit about me. I'm a real estate advisor out of Hoboken in Jersey City. I'm with 𝐒𝐏𝐄𝐂 Volkers out of Hoboken. I am a full-time real estate agent, Hoboken Fire Department captain. I am the father of 2 and a husband. I hate free time, clearly. I just like to make sure that every possible second of my day is taken up, which is why I jump on panels like this and organize things like this as well. I taught high school in Jersey City for 4.5 years. So 2 of the biggest things that I bring to my client is that education and that transparency. With a background in education, I take a lot of pride in making sure that my clients know what's going to go on from start to finish. And by the time that they're done with me, they truly are educated on everything about what it is to buy or sell a home. And we'll talk more about why that education is going to be so important for our buyers and our sellers moving forward. Like I said, guys, I had a roller coaster of emotions when this thing came out. I was angry at first. Why would NAR settle? This is ridiculous. This is going to ruin the industry. And then I kind of shifted to a mindset within about an hour after hearing the news and figuring out that so what now? What is happening? It doesn't matter what my opinion is of it. And I shifted to this is a massive opportunity for us to truly educate our clients in mass. It is an opportunity for us to make sure that our clients are protected this entire process moving forward. And the truth is, it was an opportunity for me to get professionals around us to make sure that we educate the masses as much as we can. And that's how this panel was formed today. What I wanted to start with here is how does this affect buyers moving forward? Right? The talk right now is that obviously this is shifting the landscape for buyers in terms of what their closing costs are going to be. How are they going to pay for representation? Do they even get representation? And the common thread is always been, oh, well, can they just mortgage? The common question I get is, can they mortgage their closing costs? And that's why it's important that Lisa. So Lisa, can you give us a little bit of insight as to what this is going to look like from a lending perspective for buyers in the new landscape where they are going to have to pay for representation if they so choose to hire their own personal buyer's agent? What is this look like for lending guidelines?
So as far as lending goes, we can only mortgage real property. So we can't mortgage your closing costs of your representation. They can do it with a seller concession, but there are rules with seller concessions too. On a conventional loan, if it's less than 10%, you can only do 3% of a seller concession. If it's 10 to 25, you can do up to 6%. So you have to be mindful because a lot of people are putting down minimal seller concessions too. They are working. Cross Country is one of the largest lenders in the nation, and they're working along with everyone is reaching out to each other. They're working with NAR. They're working with the title people. Every one of us is working to try to get good results for the consumer. And it's not going to be perfect at first. There's going to be different things that happen. My world, or our whole world, I guess Jim was in on that too. And so was, I think all of us were pretty much, except when the mortgage meltdown came, that was 2008. And there was changes. We were just getting faxes and emails saying, due to the current market conditions, this is no longer available. That's no longer available. Nothing's grandfathered. Many small appraisal companies went out of business because people didn't pay when their house under appraised. It was a big change for us then too. And many people did leave our industry as a result, but we all learned and we all adapted. And the real estate agents group did too. You realtors jumped on board. You learned about CDs, LEs, TRID, waiting periods, and all of that, as did the attorneys. And title had the yeoman's tour of that, really, Jim. So we worked through it, and we're going to be shoulder to shoulder with the realtors, working through and supporting them. And the biggest thing is it's important for buyers to be educated to understand that they need to be represented because of what a buyer's agent does. A buyer's agent does so much, and there's so much value to that, rather than going in blind. So I really feel like this is a value proposition that just like all the realtors have perfect pitches for their sellers, but now you're going to have to do that for your buyers too, and see what value add do you bring. Your negotiation skills, your education of the types of homes that are out there, how you put together different homes for them to view. What you see on the MLS is not what somebody sees on Zillow. And you have to educate your buyers to understand that. And you need a lender that's going to back you and support you as well. Tom and I work very well together. When he puts in an offer, he always includes me, which gives me an opportunity to speak to the seller's side about the deal, about the people involved and their strengths and his strengths as well. And that makes deals happen, as Tom will attest to.
So Lisa, if in the beginning, right, you mentioned that right now buyers cannot finance their commissions, right? So if an agent gets an agency agreement for 3%, that buyer then, in theory, if the seller is paying 0, which again, guys, not to be an alarmist, right? Chances are that, and we'll get into more of this later, that sellers are going to continue to pay fees. So you'll have to pick up some of the difference, maybe whatever it is, right? Whatever your agreement looks like. So let's not panic here. But in the off chance that they aren't paying anything, they can't mortgage that. Is there talks and there's ongoing talks to figure out a way that they can mortgage that? What's that look like?
Well, that's going to have to be, that's a very higher level because we have to be RESPA compliant. We have to be compliant with all the banking regulations and industry guidelines. So those things will happen, but not fast.
Okay.
So it's going to be something that's going to be more in the agents, and literally the buyers they're the ones who bring the check.
Yeah.
And so,
so the road, and keep in mind too, guys, right? The road to the closing table has changed. But the buyer has always been the one bringing the money to the table, right? So if we can get creative with the way that, how much they're putting down and break this down for them in a way that says, okay, listen, instead of 10%, right, you're putting down less percentage, whatever that looks like, right? So it's on us to make sure that we give all of our options to them. Now, Jeremy, when it comes to getting to that closing table, right, with everything going on, talk to us a little bit about why, from a legal standpoint, having a buyer, if a buyer is watching this right now, what is their benefits legally to having buyer representation as opposed to going direct to a listing agent and not hiring their own personal buyer broker?
Well, when they go directly to the listing agent, then when they don't have the buyer's agent with them, then they have to actually sign a waiver saying that they acknowledge what they're signing away, what rights they're signing away, and interests they're signing away, as far as only having one realtor involved there. Clearly, the realtor then becomes just a intermediary between the seller and the buyer, and they cannot put one over the other. Whereas when the client comes in with you as the agent, they have you going full force. They have you, that realtor, protecting every aspect of them. And again, that's at the end of the day, that's what they want in their corner, especially with a first-time home buyer. You want an advocate who is advocating for your every need, your every desire, your every want. Have all those conversations up front going into the buying process is much easier than having those conversations now with the listing agent alone. And can it get done? Sure. Does it get done? Yes. But I believe the clients, the consumers, are much more protected and advocated for when they do come in with the buyer's realtor.
So as we talk more about buyers, realtors, and getting creative and everything else, right, one of the creative ways that as agents we've talked about figuring this out is trying to figure out what it looks like to have a seller concession to pick up the cost of the buyer broker commission. So in New Jersey, again, guys, when we're talking about this, right, this whole panel operates in New Jersey. So this may be different in your market. And for those of you guys who are just joining us, this panel is built of professionals from New Jersey who are kind of just talking, giving some insight as to what this looks like for buyers, for sellers, and for agents. But when we're talking about getting creative and finding a way to, quote, mortgage the closing cost and mortgage that for our commissions, the appraisals are already tight in New Jersey. We are up against it. So Jim, what is your concern from a title and appraisal standpoint with the change of these guidelines?
Sure. There's been a lot of theories out there about different ways to skin the cat and accomplish the goal. One of them that I keep hearing about is looking at a potential seller concession. And then that's obviously inflating the sale price up, where now we're in a tight market. In many of the markets that I work in, there's still bidding wars happening. values and the lack of sales is creating a lack of comparables that an appraiser can use. So they're looking more in arrears. And once that sale price keeps going north, the values are just not going to be there. And you're going to be right back to where you started from, because to add in to already compete with that appreciating value and then add in a seller concession on top of that, you're far beyond market. And an appraiser has to appraise the property at market value and cannot consider the fact that the seller is paying a concession to the buyer.
Yeah, because that can't, while it loops in as a concession, it's again, it can't be mortgaged. So that seller concession, it still has to appraise for that concession price.
It has, and correct, and just same thing that's happening right now, and it has to appraise, or everybody is in a bit of a problem. You get somebody that's putting down, a buyer that's putting down a tremendous amount of money, it becomes less of an issue. But the appraiser is appraising the property at fair market value and not considering the fact that the sale price went up because of that concession.
And because of the concessions, right? And this happens when we're dealing with the finances, everything else, and Lisa can speak more to this, is the amount of concession, and you kind of hinted towards this earlier, Lisa, was the amount of concession is going to change the dynamic of that loan. So you may not even be able to get the full concession anyway, because it's going to change the way that loan is actually written. So on some loans, you're only allowed to have a certain percentage of concessions of the sale price, right?
Yes. And sometimes people drop their down payment in order to cover an appraisal gap too. And that could change what kind of concession you're able to give.
Yeah. Yeah. So now with all of that stuff, right, we talk about all that. And the truth is, guys, if in all of our markets, if we can articulate our value to our clients, right, the large percentage of this won't really affect us. And we'll continue to operate. And the good agents will find a way out of this, and they'll plan accordingly and be able to pivot. But the consumer here has a real chance to struggle. Now, Phil, you didn't think you were going to get off the hook, and as a NAR director who has that insight here with the buyers, right? The large percentage.
I was planning on it, Tom.
You were hoping. You're not getting off the hook that easy. But the large percentage of people, right, and the common complaint is that NAR hung the first-time buyers out to dry. Right. This is already a horrible market for first-time home buyers. The prices are going through the roof. They're in bidding wars with already low down payments. Right. And more specifically, and this one is something that's close to your heart as a veteran, but they also hung out the veterans with the VA loans who aren't allowed to come out of pocket on this kind of stuff. Right. So, Phil, give us a little bit of insight as to what went into the decision making when it came to, was that brought up in these meetings with NAR as hey, listen, we're hurting a large contingent of the consumer here. So give us a little bit of what that looks like.
Well, I'm sure the thoughts and the discussions around all those areas took place. I was not privileged to be part of those discussions, so I can't elaborate on it all too much. All I can say at this point is that NAR took the broader step to try and protect the 1 million agents out there from liability should this case had gone forward and they lost. That was the principal issue that they attempted to conclude with the settlement. That, and of course, the number of rule changes. But yes, there were unintended consequences. No question about it. Okay. What steps they're taking today, I'm not certain of. I'm sure by the time they get together down in Washington for the legislative meetings that are going to be taking place at the beginning of May, there's going to be a lot of new information coming forward and a lot of different ways, procedures that will be implemented in order, and hopefully will be able to help some of these other buyers in the marketplace.
And again, this is version 1. Well, everything that we've read about the settlement, everything that we're talking about today, right, is version 1. This changes daily. Right. Hell, it changes hourly, right? It's constantly evolving, right? So
they went to the VA. They went to the VA and asked them, would they be possible to change the procedure for allowing the veterans to make some contribution towards the
so they are in talks with the VA again. They're trying to figure
Yes,
this out.
absolutely.
Are they in talks with the banking?
They have spoken with the banking community, but
Okay.
the banking community said there's nothing they can do unless there were legislative changes to the rules and regulations for lending.
Which is usually pretty easy to change, right? I mean, how hard could it be to change those?
Oh yeah, right away. They can snap your fingers. It's done.
Everything in Washington gets done fast. So all right. So with that, right, let's kind of go into exactly, again, this is version 1, what this is going to look like for the buyers that are, excuse me, any buyers that are on this call or listening to this, secondhand, understand that these things are not scheduled to go into effect until July, right? So
mid-July is what they,
so that's kind of the plan. Is they're going to have all the hope is that they have all these things ironed out, right? And for the agents that are on this too, again, version 1, this thing will not go into effect until July. So this is going to change, is going to evolve. Now in May, Phil, are you going to be down there for those meetings in May?
Yes, I will be in Washington for the legislative meetings.
So what I heard you just say was that you're volunteering to come back on to a panel in, say, the end of May or beginning of June, and we'll do this again and update everybody. So let's move on. This is not going to, this is going to go into effect until July, but the idea here is that we educate as many people as possible. When it comes to sellers and our selling clients and anybody on this webinar or in that's listening to this and thinking about what this looks like for them as a seller. Personally, I have gone and met with 2 different sellers since this news is broken. I know multiple agents who have gone on multiple listing appointments since this news is broken. And what sellers need to understand is that this settlement, what it has done is decouple the commissions, right? And what was happening was, and again, I don't know for sure. So if somebody in this chat is in the Midwest that was part of this where it all started, please feel free to kind of call it out as to what your commission sheets used to look like. But in New Jersey, we've always been ahead of the decoupling of the commissions. So in New Jersey, we have a percent. You agree to a percentage, and then on that piece of paper, you clearly state what you are going to pay the buyer broker compensation. So we've been ahead of the decoupling curve. But this was a big complaint, was that they've now, that they were not decoupled. They are now. They have separated the two. Yes. Sellers are no longer obligated to pay the buyer brokers. And the whole spin in the media of, now real estate commissions are negotiable. Listen, in the industry, we all know that that's not true.
Right.
Unfortunately, the everyday consumer does not realize that commissions have always been negotiable. That is what we do in Indiana. So Julie says that's what they do in Indiana. I'm guessing that, Julie, you're talking about the decoupling and the way that the sign-off works on there as well. So thank you for that. When it comes to the way that this whole thing is going to work and the way that we've always been decoupled, my concern here is that it's always been negotiable, but what does it look like from a legal standpoint with these new regulations? Is there any potential conflict of litigation for a seller and things like that, Jeremy? What are we looking at in terms of legal standpoint for sellers?
You mean any exposure they have as far as
are they exposed because they're going to be looking, now having only one representative, right? When you sign this thing, is there any potential problems for buyers now looking to sue because they feel like they were underrepresented?
Well, in my opinion, no. They're everything that they go into, they have to waive. We here in the U.S. we have the freedom to contract, so they go in as long as they knowingly go into the contract. They have to. That's why they can't just tell the listing agent, that they'll agree to the dual agency. It has to be in writing. It has to be signed by both parties, the seller and the buyer. The contract has to be signed by the seller and the buyer. So whatever the buyer goes in, they contract for, whether they have an agent to protect them, the attorney to protect them or not, then that's their decision. So I don't believe that the sellers are going to have any legal exposure on that. As far as the buyer coming back, may people try it? Sure, they could try to sue for anything. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I don't believe that the sellers are exposed legally.
Okay, so in terms of like what problems can come up, right? And kind of just spitballing here, what this looks like for sellers and buyers and navigating this new breakdown, right? From a title standpoint, Jim, what's it going to look like for a seller from a title standpoint if they don't have that seller, that buyer doesn't have representation? Is there any concerns on your end from a title standpoint?
Yeah, my company operates in 13 states. So we're obviously in New Jersey, we're housed here, but we operate up and down the East Coast. So, we're used to the customs from state to state. And some are heavy attorney states that attorneys are involved in everything. Some are title states where it's the title agent. But in every case, there's usually realtors on both sides. So that's the only thing that popped into my head as we're going through this about the potential closing issues is when the seller has an attorney on the seller side and there's no attorney on the buyer side. That becomes a bit messy. Title agents can't provide legal advice. So that might be a bit of a challenge for all the players in a transaction to deal with when you have a buyer that now you're dealing with directly. As in many transactions, it's usually the professionals that are in the transaction gearing it up to closing. And then obviously the buyers come into the closing day and they're not in all the email chains and the communication going on. So yeah, that's hopefully would not be a large percentage of transactions that you feel that there's not going to be a higher percentage of buyers that think I can just do this by myself, because you see the true value of an agent is guiding them through the closing process. So
and you brought something up that differs from not only from state to state, but it differs from section of the state to section of the state, right? Is in the chat, if you use attorneys, drop it. Tell me a little bit about whether or not you use attorneys or title companies, and let me get some feedback as to what you use. Because in New Jersey, up north, up here, we use attorneys and title. But I know that in South Jersey, they only use title companies, right?
So it's split. Even though New Jersey is a small state, it's kind of split down the center. As well as a title state versus an attorney state. We're kind of like, even though we're a small state, we're split in half. You go into other states that we work in, Delaware, South Carolina, Georgia, heavy attorney states, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Florida. It's going right to title companies, and the realtors are really the ones negotiating and in the transaction with us. So the buyer is not necessarily involved in the nuts and bolts of driving that to closing.
Okay. All right. So as a professional who's been in this for as long, Long Island uses attorneys on both sides. So if as somebody who's been in this for as long as you've been, would you recommend, right? And again, this is a new landscape, right? So different people use attorneys on both sides. Some people don't use attorneys at all. Title companies typically rarely attorney in Indiana, according to Julie. So as somebody who's been in this industry for as long, is this a time to then shift? Is it more important now that both sides use attorneys than it has been in the past?
Well, it's the issue is really if a realtor is going to be missing as part of the key to the transaction, not so much the customs will prevail. In New York, it's not going to change that attorneys are dealing with the real estate transaction. That's not going to shift, even if there was no buyer realtor in there.
Okay.
In the title states where an attorney, it's not the norm maybe to go right to an attorney during the attorney review process, and it's done with the realtors. But in those states that it has the custom, like New Jersey is a custom that in the northern part of the state attorney, southern part of the state title companies, if that becomes a situation where there is an attorney on the one side, no attorney on the other side, and self-representation, that I can see that being a bit problematic.
Okay. All right. So part of the reason that this, the whole breakdown, right, is, we need to make it more affordable for the consumer. We need to settle to make this thing more affordable and more transparent for the consumer. Phil, you've been in the industry, like we said, for a long time. You're one of the NAR directors, everything else. Of all your time in the industry, have you ever heard a seller say that they don't want to sell because the commission is too high? Has that ever?
Actually, I have never heard that put quite that way, Tom. They usually hem and haw at the beginning about the amount of commission, no question about it. But when you start to offer the homeowner your value proposition, what you're bringing to the table for the commission, and make them understand, you know, you work just like everybody else. It's part of your income to service their home on the marketplace, and all the things that a realtor does to justify what they're offering in terms of compensation to be remitted. Okay, there's a lot of education out there about this. NAR has posted 105 ways a buyer's agent works for you, 179 different ways a seller's agent works for you. All of these things collectively is what justifies your compensation when you list and sell a house.
And you brought up a couple of key points that are going to roll us right into. So, you know, for anybody that's on here that's thinking about selling or watching this that is thinking about selling, the truth is we're going to get into a little bit of education about what we as agents, and this kind of comes back to all of us as agents, right, who have a duty to educate our sellers on how we get you top dollar for your home. And the biggest piece of that is, yes, our commissions have always been, and they will continue to be negotiable everywhere. No matter what somebody tells you, understand that you have the power to negotiate your commission. However, what you also need to think about here, and we're going to roll into why this affects agents and how as agents we should, you know, really start to navigate this new landscape. As a seller, make no mistake, if you are not going to offer a buyer broker compensation, you are going to put yourself at a massive competitive disadvantage when it comes to selling your home. There is no way around it. As somebody whose business in the past and is just now shifting towards the listing side much more, but my business largely skews towards buyers. When I have a buyer agreement and I say to my buyer, hey, listen, 123 Main Street is paying $0 in commission, but 125 Main Street is going to pay 2.5% commission. So therefore, you won't actually owe me anything because they're going to pick up the entire of the 2.5% that we agreed to. Which home do you think that buyer is going to go see?
That's the marketing strategy, Tom. That's the correct marketing strategy to use. And
as agents, we have to be able to properly articulate what that looks like. And what that competitive disadvantage is doing for our sellers to make sure that they understand just what we're looking at. Yes, we can negotiate the commission all we want, but what does it look like? And because our job at the end of the day is to get the most money out of the market for you. So we need to make sure that you're in a position to do that. So with that, again, my thing was education. I have a background in education, so I pride myself on making sure that my clients and frankly, this panel can educate the masses here when it comes to what this looks like. So we're going to kind of jump into just what it looks like for the agents. My biggest piece of advice is, as I said in the beginning, I handpicked this panel. And for those of you guys that are just joining us, I handpicked this panel to make sure that we could educate the masses on what this looks like for buyers, for sellers, and for agents across the country as best we can. The large percentage of stuff that we're talking about will pertain largely to the state of New Jersey, but we're trying to keep it as broad as possible to what this NAR settlement reads for agents. And that's where we're going to dive into now, is what this means for agents moving forward. And the number one piece of advice is surround yourself with a team who understands this lawsuit, who can articulate what this lawsuit means for your clients, because we have a duty to our clients, but we also have a duty to ourselves. And by surrounding ourselves with the proper team, we're going to make ourselves look better in the transaction. Every time that they call somebody on our team of vendors that we're giving them, that vendor's job is to continue to make us look good and look like the professionals so that we continue to send them business. So it's important that this is a back and forth with our team. So for that said, Lisa, you work with a ton of agents, obviously, throughout the state, and you're licensed in a couple of different states. What are some things that you see in terms of what agents can do to better position themselves to come out on the other side of this thing?
Well,
got a phone call. Maybe this is because the decision got overturned. What are some things that you could do that agents can do to put themselves in a position to come out on the other side of this? Because there is a roadmap to come out on the other side of this, guys, like rock stars. What does it look like, Lee?
So I think a lot of people don't know how to really promote their value add. And that's what I really try to do with my agents in promoting value add through events, through just talking about what my agents do. I like when I get a referral, I always talk to them and tell them why they made a good choice with whatever agent they're with, because I know each of my agents, so I can advocate for them and speak to that. NAR also has a free buyer's agent class that you can take for free, if I'm not mistaken, right, Phil?
Yes, there's the accredited buyer's representative course is now being made available to any NAR agent that wants to take it for free. And it will have a focus directly on utilizing the buyer representative agreement in the course of doing business.
And
That's
I
that
just
one.
I want to
And then
address
there's the other one called C2EX, which is the commitment to excellence. And that will enable you to let the public know that you are specialized education in knowledge, expertise to help clients navigate some of the buying and selling scenarios in the marketplace.
And just so we're clear, and nothing that we're saying in this, right? The whole point of this panel was that you can take it to the public. Hell, we're streaming live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook right now. So if we're not allowed to say something to the public, it's a good thing that we have an attorney on here. But the other side of this is the whole idea behind this, guys, was to make sure that we arm our community and our industry with some information possible. So again, we're now diving into the agent side of this. So please type your questions in the chat, guys. I can bring them right up and hopefully we can answer them live and get through them. Marcy Bork, the next question is where can we register for these courses?
Very good question. Go to facts.realtor and facts.realtor or competition.realtor. And there should be a link in either one of those sites to register for the course.
Great. I appreciate that, Phil. So that makes everybody can get a heads up as to, what that course looks like and where they can get that stuff there. Let's take a look here. What else do we have? Curious, for the companies who are not NAR members, will they have to settle individually, and will there continue to be advantage of being a NAR member?
Good question. NAR is working on getting everyone covered, but at the present time, the only ones that are covered under the settlement are NAR members.
NAR members, and brokerages that did a volume of less than
$2 billion, right?
In 2022?
2022. That is correct.
So, for instance, like Compass just settled their own side agreement on this.
Right.
So, I thought that we can't tell a seller that not compensating a buyer will result in fewer showings. Another question from Ann, whether or not this is
can't tell us.
I mean, listen.
Well, ethically, I would be careful how we express that. You really can't tell the seller, well, if you don't offer anything to the buyer side, it may not be in your best interest to get the house sold. I mean,
but here's
your own dialogue for that.
But Phil and Jeremy, maybe as an attorney side of this, right? Here's my stance to this. This is no longer right. The idea would be whether or not would that be considered steering, right? Because we were advertising commissions, and the idea was whether or not agents were taking them to a 2% listing versus a 2.5% listing, everything else. Now the buyer has skin in the game as to what they're going to cost. We're not, as a buyer's agent, I'm not telling them where to go. I'm simply providing them with the facts. And the facts are, if the seller is not offering compensation, my buyer, who's going to be required to pick up the rest of that cost, is going to make that decision. It's not steering. I mean, I just don't see a scenario how anybody could argue that would be steering. The buyer's making that decision because they're going to come out of pocket more.
I mean, you can have that hypothetical conversation with the seller, right? Say, hey, listen, this may happen, but it's the market. The market's going to drive the way it's going to drive. So if the seller is offering it, but that's the whole reason for this lawsuit, right? Because the sellers were obligated to compensate the buyer's agents. So that's what the courts are looking to get away from. That's what the changes in this.
One of many of the reasons.
Yeah, right? One of them. So but again, I don't think, I think it's unwise to tell a seller, hey, you have to, offer a percentage to the buyers in order to sell your house. That's not true. That's not ethical. It's not. But it's a conversation. It's a marketing strategy that you could have that conversation, and it all comes down to conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's going to be part of the marketing, right? And that's truth. It is with this new landscape. It's unavoidable. It's going to be part of the conversation, and it has to be. We owe it to our clients.
That, Tom, you can't teach that to agents to make that statement to a homeowner. That's for sure. It's got to be worked into the conversation.
Figure out a way to work it into your conversation. But the truth is, that's the reality of this landscape now.
Right.
So figure out how you navigate it. But the truth is, by the time that this stuff goes into effect, a big thing that that we talk about in my office is figuring out that the reality is that your buyer presentation is going to have to be probably better now than your listing presentation, because the buyer is going to be, there's a possibility they're going to be coming out of pocket. And as we continue to shift on this landscape, it kind of brings me to my next point is, Jim, as owning two companies, you've seen a lot of shifting in different landscapes in terms of what that looks like in the markets and everything else. So with those changes that have gone on, how's some advice that you can give to agents to come out stronger on the other side of this?
Well, I can tell you the first thing I would say to everybody and all my realtor friends on this call: don't panic. Panic just creates problems. There's negativity that's flying around out there and a lot of bashing that's happening, and it's really not going to get anybody anyplace. So I've been in the appraisal industry and own an appraisal management company since 1988 and title business since 1992, and I've seen a lot of change. A lot of changes that have impacted us greatly. And as a business owner, trying to shift gears, find new ways to get through business, find new ways to deal with your clients, help educate, empower your employees, empower the people working around you to find a way to get better and to get through this and then come out the other side stronger. It's inconvenient. Sometimes it changes the landscape of how your business is run, but change is the only constant that we all have to deal with. There are so many things that have happened in the appraisal world, and I liken a lot of the chat that's happening now in the real estate community to the appraisal community when they're complaining about everything that was taking place with all the changes, where technology is putting them out of business, drive-by appraisals, desktops. There's a whole bunch of things that are still happening to this day, appraisal waivers, desktops appraisals. It's changing the way you do business, so you have to find a way to adapt and thrive in order to move forward. If you don't, then you're just going to get bypassed. The same old way of doing business is not going to exist anymore, but you might be able to come out better and stronger on the other side of this because you found ways to adapt.
And talking about coming out better and stronger, the truth is, as a buyer, we have an opportunity here as buyer's agents if you're very good with buyers, you have an opportunity to specialize as a buyer's agent. They talked about this on the Knowledge Brokers podcast, right? And talk about just how much how much now you are going to be able to get paid for your actual value, right? Because now not only did they give the consumer some power back with this ruling in terms of negotiating commissions and everything else is what they're going to pay for the buyer broker commission, they've also given us as agents power back to make sure that we get what we believe that we are worth. Right. And it's going to be on us to take a hard look in the mirror, because the truth is, way too many people take a look and they want to blame circumstances. The market sucks, or this sucks, and this is bad. This is bad. Take a look in the mirror, figure it out. What is your value? Why should somebody be lucky enough to hire you as their agent? Right. And understand your value and then go get paid for it. Right. And you're too busy, think about what contractors done. We've worked with contractors in the past, right? Think about what contractors did during COVID, where they were so busy, or just ever they were so busy, they were just jacking up prices and going, yeah, if somebody takes it, I'll take the job, right? You have the ability to manage your workload now. You don't have to run around chasing every single thing that comes in. And you could say, hey, listen, I've got 5 buyers under contract that I'm currently actively working with. I'm swamped right now with everything else. Listen, I'll take you on as a buyer if you're willing to pay, 3.5% instead of my standard 2.5%. Right. So you can finally negotiate how much you get paid as a buyer's agent, which we haven't had that power. So on the other side of this, we can come out better. We can come out with more money in our pockets and being paid finally what we are actually worth. So that's going to take a different approach. Going to take getting your head out of the sand, right? And the whole wait and see approach is not going to work on this, right? If this goes into effect in July, you need to be having those conversations with your clients now. You need to be practicing your scripts as to what this looks like to implement your buyer agency agreements now. Role play it. Build your team of professionals that are going to make you look good and can help articulate your value to the deal. Build to that now so that when this goes into effect, you're rolling already in July. This is not a learning curve for you because you've started the steps now, even when it hasn't gone into fully effect. So stop with the wait and see approach. I get from a brokerage standpoint, some brokers are saying, well, legally we need to wait. Legally we can't say this, that. As agents, we can get ahead of it. Our clients are getting this information somewhere. It should be from you, right? Because it's very clear that the national media is not giving the proper information. So get educated on what this looks like and what it means for your consumer, and get out and have the conversations with them now. Because if they're going to come to you and say, hey, I heard XYZ, one, have a rebuttal, but two, it already looks like you're trying to hide something from them if they feel like they had to come to you with it. This is national news. This is an opportunity for us to touch base with our clients and truly dive into the education for them and make sure that we look like the adults in the room, not the national media.
Hey, Tom, can I comment on that?
Yeah, please.
So I can tell you that my industries, the last 2 State of the Union addresses over the past 2 years, this year they talk about title insurance. Prior year, there was a conversation about real estate appraisals. Never in my career have, you heard the president, talk about title insurance appraisals. Both of those prompted action, conversations, a lot of headache, a lot of education. So I got into mode of educating my clients, talking to people. Hey, title insurance is not going away. This is what they mean. And there's a lot of things that still have to happen, for even that event to take place. Right. So getting in front of it, you just gave great advice of taking advantage of the opportunity to educate, get yourself in front of it, and having dialogues as a trusted advisor instead of just sitting back waiting for everybody else to do it.
This is not the time to sit back, right? I mean,
right. And I support everything that both Jim and Tom, you just said, particularly about the broadcast media, the print media. They have all initially came out with comments that were not favorable towards realtors whatsoever and how we did business. There was a bunch last week. There was a bunch of pundits and analysts who told us that realtors would be leaving the business in droves. Well, that's not necessarily the case. In fact, in my own association in Middlesex County and the adjoining counties making up our association, we're still bringing on new agents. A gentle reminder that some people are getting their 5 minutes of fame over here. Let me just tell you.
That's so true.
4 years ago, our industry was recognized as essential to the economy. Okay? And you sold more homes than ever during an unprecedented times. Okay? So this year, we are on track to sell 9 homes per minute. So somebody's buying them out there.
Transactions are still going to happen.
Absolutely.
The truth is, the whole discount brokerage thing, everything else, that stuff is going to happen no matter what. I can't put this in. Somebody's texting me questions. I guess they couldn't get them in the chat, but
Can I just make a comment too? When you talk about putting a team together, a lot of people don't realize what realtors do. I had a customer that said, my realtor, they sold my house really fast and then they got me a house really fast. Why are they getting all this money? And I had to remind them, okay, I said, so somebody priced your house properly, got it sold for you, and did it really quickly. And then they did a great buyer consultation, knew what your needs were, what your desires were, and found you a home that fit you. So in like the corporate world, they'd get a bonus, but you want to take away from them. And so they have to understand too that, and you have to, as realtors, and I let them know too, that you 3%, 2%, you don't get to keep all that. That goes to fees. That goes to your split with your broker. That goes to taxes. These aren't all things that you're not just getting this giant chunk to just take. There's people that have their hands in that pie with you too. And they need to understand that what you're working for, doing a buyer consultation, getting the notes, letting you know if there's an oil tank underneath, letting you know, getting you a great home inspector to make sure that you're going to be safe through it, helping you if you don't have an attorney to find a great attorney. And I feel that it's my job too, that when my buyers, sometimes they don't have a lot of money. So to make that communication to them too, where we can find them grants or we can find them different things that could help them with an appraisal gap or whatnot. But you have to promote what your realtors do too, because you guys work very hard. We're all in this together and we are a team. And when a realtor gives me a deal, not only do I value that customer so much and make sure that they come out better, that it's not about just having a house, it's about having a good life and making sure that they do. But also you're handing me your paycheck as a realtor. And I have reverence for that. And I know that Jeremy does, and so does Jim. We're all in this together. We're going to be with you, realtors, shoulder to shoulder through this, looking for creative ways and helping you. And it's all about protecting the consumer at the end of the day. And we all want happy clients, happy consumers, and getting them the right home and making sure that they're going to have a good life.
I mean, look, this is, you hit a lot of topics there about why it's important to build a team around you and have professionals truly have, what I continue to say this, but have adults that are going to be in the room with you, right? So if you don't already, we all have, and veteran agents all have their preferred lenders, their preferred attorneys, preferred title companies, right? But this is the time to huddle up and get your team together and have that conversation about how can I help you and how can you help me with this value proposition to make sure that everybody comes out on the other side of this thing, smelling like roses. So we continue to grow our businesses, because when they grow, we grow. When we grow, they grow, right? This is going to be a back and forth. I've got a question for Phil that got texted to me from my broker. For some reason, she couldn't put it in the chat. I'm going to guess that's user error, Lisa. Probably not technology error, but whatever. Let's say it says, does NAR have any plans for a PR campaign to perhaps right the ship from a public-facing perspective for its members? Is there any plans to truly get and truly get the right information out there for its members and make sure that the media, because of this, has villainized us as agents, made us look.
Well, they did initially respond to the media on the basis of the fact that they were defending their position that all commissions were negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
When they first started blasting the marketplace with the fact that, the 5% and 6% commissions are gone. Well, they're not gone, everybody. They're still out there. It's just a matter of how it's going to be negotiated in future transactions. NAR made that perfectly clear. And yes, there are plans for them to have a PR campaign to reinforce the position of realtors in all aspects of the real estate transactions.
Okay.
It will be coming forward. I don't have.
We don't know when, but it's going to be coming forward.
They are working on it right now, and they have PR people are working diligently to try and get the messages put together to get out there. They have radio, television campaigns going on right now, and certainly they'll be more forthcoming.
Maybe they could pull some of that budget that they use for that Hulu show or whatever it is that they're doing. They can pull some money from that and dump it into a PR campaign that may actually.
Yeah, I don't control the purse strings over there, Tom.
Not yet, Phil. But we're going to get you there soon enough. So, listen, guys, if you have any other questions, please feel free to dump them into the chat quickly. I'm going to kind of start to wrap this up. I appreciate everybody kind of logging on and making sure that you ask questions. I appreciate the interactive side of this. I hope that you guys took something useful. We do plan to do this again after the May meetings, and I will be putting that out. Make sure to follow along. You can follow me on the YouTube channel. If most of you guys from the comments here are on YouTube, make sure to follow me on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram at Tom Worley Homes. And make sure to follow on. That's where I'm going to kind of be posting these announcements and things like that. I hope that you guys took something from it. The biggest thing that I hope you took from this, guys, is as agents, get your head out of the sand. Get your head. Don't worry about it. Don't panic over this. This is an opportunity, and let's make sure that we look at this as an opportunity. Curious if they'll be advertising to the public. If you have been a victim to this circumstance, you can get money through this lawsuit so that it will be bad for business. Julie, let's see here. Julie, I'm not sure that Phil's going to have an answer to this, but I'll pull it up for him to read it. Curious, will they be advertising it to the public? If you have been a victim of this circumstance, you can get money through this lawsuit. I
don't think that will be the case now that it's settled.
Yeah. It feels like they're going to settle this and they wrap this thing up and try to put a bow on
because
this.
Because the NAR, part of the settlement is that they have no claim anymore for liability.
Yep.
But if she's possibly asking about if she's a class member or if they know somebody who's a class member, the attorneys involved in the settlement and they're going to be putting it out there. So there will be information that you could obtain to see if you are a class member
so they can get
the settlement.
Yeah. So they can get their $5 from the class settlement. So because we know the overwhelming percentage of that money is going to the attorneys. So there will be something probably that goes out, Julie, that allows people to get funds if they were exposed to it, much like the class action suits that we're all used to seeing.
And I don't think it's bad for her to tell them that. I mean, it's what happened. It's a fact.
Yeah. And again, this comes back to our responsibility to educate our clients. So guys, get in front of it. The biggest pieces of advice is to have an opportunity mindset here. Use this as an opportunity to touch base with your clients and truly educate them. Educate yourselves on what this looks like. There's a lot of ins and outs of this thing that we did not cover as to how much you can get paid, as a buyer broker and what those buyer broker agreements are going to look like. Because the truth is, these things may change throughout time and they may look different. By the time we get off this call, they may look different, right? So keep that in mind. Use this as an opportunity. Get educated, educate your clients, and get out in front of this, and then build yourself a team so that when you're on the other side of this, right, your whole team knows how to make you look like the valued member that we truly are as agents and as advisors in this industry.
And sell yourself.
Take a look in the mirror. Make the list of things as to why somebody should be lucky enough to work with you and why you should be paid, and be able to practice articulating that. Get together with agents in your office, role play this through, sit down and figure out what your buyer presentation looks like and be able to spit it out like it's second nature. Like you can say your name, right? So get good at that and get comfortable in the uncomfortable. These conversations that you're going to be having with your clients are not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. The fact that we've shifted from a mindset of, listen, you pretty much pay my commission, but the truth is it comes out of the seller's side. But as the buyer, you're still bringing the money to the table, to now having to say, hey, listen, I need you to sign this agreement. This is not going to be easy for everybody. I understand that a lot of states have been using this for a long time. So if you have resources in other states, for instance, I know that Georgia has been on this train for a long time. So if you have colleagues in Georgia, call them, figure out how they're presenting this to their clients. Lean on each other, lean on the industry and the community, and figure out what this looks like coming forward, because I promise you there's a roadmap to come out on the other side making more money than where we are right now.
And there's 18 states throughout the country that have been using buyer agency agreements for quite some time. So it's not a novelty for them as it is for us here in the state of New Jersey. And you can get the buyer representation agreements from our state association. You can download them in zip form, both an exclusive and a non-exclusive buyer agency agreement. So the documentation is there and readily available for you to employ and to discuss with your prospective buyers as they come along.
Yep. Guys, to the panel, thanks again for jumping on and allowing me to shape out this brainchild that hit me about an hour and a half after the news broke. I know it's been a whirlwind of a week getting this together and making sure that this thing really took shape. So thank you. I can't thank you guys enough for allowing me.
Thank you for putting it together, Tom.
Everybody that logged on, guys, thanks again. Make sure to follow along. You can find all of us on social media as well. So make sure to follow along with us all on social media. Follow the YouTube page. We're going to be doing this again after the meetings in May. So I hope we can get the same type of turnout then. Guys, best of luck navigating this. And if you need anything at all, please do not hesitate to reach out. I would love nothing more than to have these conversations and continue these online conversations offline and make sure that we are all getting through this together. Best of luck, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.